the same reason that the aristocracy used to be afraid of the great peasant?
Exactly, because he's speaking the truth.
Your ideas don't hold up to the argument, and so you have to shut down the argument.
Exactly. And they know that there's truth to what he's saying, and they know that people will agree with him. And they know this because they're deliberately excluding him on that basis. Yeah. And it's just like, okay, well then get fucked. Now it's just again, might makes right, and so we just have to fight back.
Exposed. That's basically what it is. They're getting more and more desperate about it. More and more of us are becoming aware of it.
So social media is killing the narrative. So keep sharing stuff. Keep telling people. Yeah, of course.
Oh, what happened in Bristol? Why is it?
Fear of Antifa. They haven't made any threats or anything like that. They were just afraid that they might turn up.
Yeah, but remember, perceived threat is everything these days.
Not even a threat, though. It's
the cameras are.
I have a question as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, are Iranians white?
Sorry?
Are Iranians white?
Wow. I mean, I'm kind of radical on the question of who's white. I mean, I don't even think the French are white, so, But no, I don't care, I don't care.
Okay. Sargon.
Race is a social construct.
I was speaking to Jean-Francois
yesterday.
Yeah. Good friend of yours.
Yeah.
And he was going to ask, what do you think of democracy, and if a democracy creates rules which are like in the liberalist worldview negative and not what is ideal, right? So how would you deal with that as a liberalist?
Exactly what I'm doing now.
Right.
You talk to people and change their mind and explain to them why these rules are bad, and eventually, when enough people have heard what we have to say, I think they will agree, because I think fundamentally we have the winning hand here. Because I mean, this is sort of thing that people of all different cultures can all agree with, and they do. Like the United Nations actually have. I can't remember how Pinker put it. I was reading Enlightenment Now, but he was saying how basically all of these different cultures and faiths all had to come together and agree on a set of rules that effectively look like what we're advocating for, but they literally said, don't ask us how we came to these conclusions, because we're all going to start arguing. And it's like, okay, well then we'll just shut up and just accept it,
But would you argue that this is quite a small minority of the general public?
No, I think most people would agree with you.
You think?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
All right, thank you.
Because it's, I mean, and the thing is, there are a lot of people who think that they speak for the majority. I'm not saying I speak for the majority, but it's one of those things where it's like, I think most people take it as a given that this is the way the world is run, and it's not. It's demonstrably not. And I think they're just starting to realise that a bunch of far-left activists have effectively hijacked liberalism and are now using it for their own devices. And I think that we can push back against that quite easily. And in fact, I think we're being so effective that they want to crack down on us. And this is where we start pushing back.
It's because things like hate crime laws sound nice. They sound like they're doing something good. And it sounds, it's just stopping people from being horrible to minorities. But it's just that the way that they're written allows you to be arrested for making a joke.
Well, it's all anything that hurts the feelings of a minority group. Yeah. So anyone, for any reason, exactly. It doesn't even have to hurt their feelings. It doesn't even have to be a complaint by the people involved in the incident that ends up getting the person arrested. It's ridiculous, and it is obviously opening the door to malicious, claims of, I'm offended, you weren't involved. Yeah, but I'm still offended, so prosecute that man. No, fuck you. And even then, fuck your feelings. I don't think the state should be legislating about offence. It really pisses me off.
It'll get to a point where if you are gay or literally any of the oppressed points, you can just, someone disagrees with you, you disagree with me because I'm gay.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm
it's all
sending
about
you to
my
jail.
perception. I've decided I'm gay. I don't know whether you know this, but I've decided you're doing it because I'm gay.
Yeah.
Therefore, hate.
To the gulag.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
But I think one of the most worrying things about Dank's case, for example, is that nobody gave a complaint from either an oppressed group or somebody that felt that they saw the thing as an offence.
It was the police themselves.
The police.
And they saw it in the news and thought, right, that's it, we're going for this. Because they want it. That's the thing, they want to, and it's part of a moral crusade for them. Because this is the thing, right? This is what the police of vice and virtue do in Saudi Arabia. They find things that are un-Islamic and then find them and, find the people who do them and then whip them and do whatever they have to do, whatever they're allowed to do. This is what it's turning British police into, and it's really disturbing. The police of political correctness, and they're enforcing politically correct laws. I mean, it shouldn't be illegal to be a racist. It's obviously uncouth. It's obviously immoral, in my opinion. And if someone, if this chap here starts spouting off Nazi things, I'm like, look, just go away. I'm gonna, I'll take my own action about it. 1,000-year pug Reich, yeah. Okay, I'm in favour of that, but this is the point. The police shouldn't have the authority to be able to intervene in that. It's absolutely an overreach of state power for a left-wing ideology, a far-left ideology. all it does is claim the moral high ground and can't justify it.
But this is what's so reprehensible about Section 127 is there's no victim.
Absolutely.
You read it and there's no
Absolutely.
victim there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely none.
Totally
I mean,
agree.
there are other things about it that are reprehensible, but that is one of them. And why did it get through in 2003? Well, one of my friends said somewhat cynically, well, it was because the Prime Minister's wife at the time was a barrister, and obviously it is an open door, Section 127, for huge legal cases. I mean, that's with a slight
that's their
tinfoil
interest,
hat
isn't it?
on.
No,
but that is one of the
Well,
interests. Not only
it's definitely
Cherie
their
Blair
interest.
at the time had enormous power and influence over
course,
what was
she
going
married to
through.
the Prime Minister,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So, yeah.
But no, that's the thing. I mean, there is an argument for class and interest to be made in these regards, because it's in the interest of the people who hold the power to want more reasons to use it. You know, I mean, like there are lots of different levels of interest there. You've got like psychological levels on a personal. Like Peterson said this in his interview with Kathy Newman.
Sounds like a Pareto thing again.
Well, no, kind of, yeah. I mean, like, there's the feeling that you're doing something good, even if you're not really doing something good. It's like Peterson said this in his interview with Kathy Newman, the momentary gratification of domination, you know. And you can see. Did everyone see the trumpet woman who was just tooting the trumpet
In Sheffield,
and
with
she
the
got
tree
arrested
protest.
for it? Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
She did nothing wrong, obviously, but the policeman who was telling her not to do it was enjoying the momentary domination of her.
This was
You know,
West
he had no
Yorkshire
right to
police.
tell her not
Yeah.
to blow this
That's
plastic
right.
trumpet.
Yeah, it's Sheffield where they're cutting the trees down.
What I find really annoying is why is it so widely, unfortunately, accepted that your right to free speech ends where another person takes offence?
I have no idea.
A right can't end. That's the thing. Right.
Yeah,
Because I argue that with a lot of people, and they tell me, oh yeah, you have free speech, but you can't use that when you're offending others.
Why?
Well,
what would I use it for if I couldn't use it to offend people? I mean, what would the point of it be? If I don't need.
I mean, the best thing I've got is, I'm sorry, but you don't have a right not to be offended.
Absolutely, and I tell you, that's pernicious, right? Even I remember years ago, I was having this argument with my wife before I started my YouTube channel and all that. She was just like, yeah, but what about my right not to be offended? I was like, how could you have a right not to be offended?
Kathy Newman
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. It just, I mean, like, even like, I mean, his argument for, like, you know, the freedom to offend is necessary for the freedom to think. That's true.
Yes.
But then, okay, let's assume that that's not true. How could you even enforce a right not to be offended? How could you do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Being a
How
failed
investigative
speech,
journalists-
Absolutely.
you have to use these,
Of course.
personal property.
And I mean, you don't need to protect speech as uncontroversial. An uncontroversial speech is not going to offend. The right to freedom of speech is literally your right to piss someone else off, and you should guard that jealously, because there are some people who deserve to be pissed off, who deserve to be offended. Fuck
Yeah,
these
I think what I found is that a lot of people
Yes,
go to
exactly.
the strawman of, yeah, but you know, if that leads to somebody getting hurt, yeah, you have a problem. But why would that be?
We have laws about it. Yeah, we have laws.
Yeah, it's not freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And actually,
Yeah.
saying go out and attack people isn't freedom.
No,
of
that's
speech.
freedom of speech is political. It's designed so you can challenge a political ideology. That's the whole purpose of it. And if people get offended by that, well, then too fucking bad.
Yeah, but this is a pervasive thing, and it's going to
yeah.
take a long time to get people to really think. And the other thing that I always think is that nobody really changes when you tell them to change. When you tell them this stuff, they have to realize it by themselves. It's a Socratic thing. They have to realize there's something wrong.
Absolutely.
I need to change this thing.
And this is another thing that drives me crazy. They're like, oh my god, the far right's on the rise. We need to clamp down. It's like, well, is you censoring, you know, other people eliminating racism, or is it creating more racists? Because it seems that you're complaining that you're creating more racists, and now you're like, we need to censor even more. It's like,
Is it like you're
that's,
saying?
yeah, that's the problem.
If you censor the middle ground, all you've got left is the two extremes.
Exactly.
Which is
But
what
the
you were
thing is,
saying earlier.
They can't possibly suggest that their opposition that they want censored have an argument. Because as soon as they admit that, that's their entire argument gone, because their argument was they're evil. And if you say, well, actually we need to have a conversation with them, you're saying actually they're rational and we can talk to them. They're not just evil. And that means your position's gone. Because your idea was that they were just evil. And it's like, okay, well...
Which is why we're the ones who get
There's also
censored.
a thing about freedom from consequence. Whenever I bring up freedom of speech in a debate with someone, they say freedom of speech should not mean free from consequence. And I'm thinking, well, if there's consequence, then it's not free speech.
Well, okay, so the thing with that is, I mean, there shouldn't be consequences from the state, from the authorities, right? But there will be social consequences. You know, whenever you say or do anything, any action you take, anything you say, people hear you and they make their own judgments, as they should.
Court
You
of
know?
public opinion should be the only
only.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the court of public opinion, and this is something that you're entitled to do. Have your own opinion on whatever. But the government should have absolutely no role in this in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion. So
unless we can hear bad ideas, we can't oppose bad
well,
ideas.
that's what John Stuart Mill talked about in On Liberty. You know, it's like you have the right to hear what someone else has to say.
Otherwise, the opposition to that bad idea can't grow in the society.
You can't even know that you're opposed to
if we're not listening to them.
You can't even know that you're opposed to this terrible idea if you've never heard the terrible idea.
Yeah.
And you have every right to hear it anyway. And it's about your own sort of moral development, because otherwise what you're doing is taking orders like a pack of sheep with sheepdogs nipping at their heels. So you don't know why you're getting to the edge of the thing, but the sheepdog comes in and nips you, and then you're like, oh, I'll just stay in my lane. You don't know why. You're not a moral actor. You're a slave. You're a moral slave to these people, and you can't ever make a judgment. So as soon as you find yourself on your own without the pack, you don't know what to do. You're not an independent person. You're part of their group of sheep, and they want
fully realised moral individual.
Absolutely, and you're not really responsible for your own actions at that point either, because you never chose to make a decision, because you don't even understand the morality that you're preaching. So it's completely infantilizing. It's really despicable.
By the way, I have information for you without cameras.
Email me or something. Thanks.
Well, censorship is like painting a bench and then putting "don't touch" on it. Everyone's suddenly interested and wants to touch. They want to find out.
It's always counterproductive, unless you have like an absolute iron grip over the system, which they don't. Thank fuck. But they are coming for it. I mean, there are constant attacks on YouTube and Facebook and all that. I mean, like this latest Cambridge Analytica thing. Oh, they're fucking around with our information. Yeah, what a shock. But
the
it's because
been doing it.
Exactly.
James Damore.
Everyone knows it's been going on since time immemorial, but they think, oh, it may have helped Trump. Oh, now it's a fucking crusade.
It's bad until I don't get it to go my way.
Exactly. Now it's a problem.
It's the one thing that, like, for ages, if I didn't know anything about this movement or anything, I would have always, like, for years ago, I would have probably said that, oh, you were a horrible person or whatever the leftist crap was. But more and more what you're saying is, like, completely right. I'm in university now, and I've got a data collection course, and I have to write a survey. And I'm in a very diverse university, of course, so we had to. And we were going to do attitudes to immigration, because obviously there were, like, among other more liberal groups, there were also, like, Italians, and obviously they've just had their elections, or they had all that other kind of stuff. And we had to, because we were having stuff, we were actually taking physical data. We needed to be checked, as you can now see where this is headed. And one of the first things because they gave us like a checklist of things that we needed to do to make it acceptable. One of the first things that they told me, like the first top line thing, was we had to have an other box in the gender option. Now that may sound silly to everyone here, but you've made.
I don't mind that so much.
Yeah.
You know,
but
that's not such a big deal.
That's not. It's not.
Quite liberal, really.
Yeah.
Giving people more choices.
It is.
But and other. Yeah. Okay. There is a tiny sliver of the population who do identify as other. That's fine. I can accept. Yeah. Exactly. I am personally. So you know.
Helicopter. But there's the first thing that they did, and of course it was marked actually not by it was marked and checked not by my professors, but for people who are higher up than them. So you're saying that there is actually much, like, the higher up you go, the more leftist it gets, especially in academia. Completely right.
I know, mate. I know. It's unbelievable. The sort of groupthink that has taken hold of the very, and they're in a complete bubble where they just deal with each other, and then they look down on the lower orders. It's natural. It's anywhere you go, and any institution, anything like that, classes are created from converging interests. So the people at the top, they all share a certain kind of interest, and it's not the entirety of their character, it's not the entirety of their job, but you end up finding these things, and these people end up converging. And if they have like a shared moral code, they will find solace in one another. They will find that they want to hang around with each other more and more, and that creates the kind of isolationist mentality, looking down on the Tommy Robinsons of the world, who are genuinely having problems.
Again, another thing proving you're right. I was discussing with these two gentlemen earlier. When the Nazis actually came to power, they had the highest approval rating from academics.
Oh yeah.
Highest approval ratings from academics and lawyers and loads of other people who you wouldn't have thought.
No, you would. Because, well, okay, we wouldn't now, but back in Weimar Germany, and Hitler complains about this in Mein Kampf, that the bourgeois classes are nationalist, they're very nationalist, but they have no way of talking to the working class because they're, well, arrogant, basically, and they're up themselves and all this. And so he was angry that the field was being left empty for the Marxists to come in at the ground level and start usurping them and making them into communists. And he literally says, and he was right when he says it. I don't want to have to say Adolf Hitler was right about something, but that was correct, and that's how the Nazis managed to go in and sweep it from under them. They brought this sort of like nationalist and socialist message, stole these voters, and ended up taking over. And the middle classes have got to be aware that this can happen. They've got to be aware.
It's great when the bourgeoisie act like the proletariat.
Oh, fuck me. If I have another champagne socialist tell me how offended they are. Like Owen Jones storming off the stage of that Sky News thing for the Orlando shooting.
Hunt him down.
Hunt
him down.
Actually, saying that he does do speeches and conferences and stuff, I might go there.
Do it.
What I'll do is, if I do that, I'll get I don't know, a bunch of T-shirts with like Pinochet's attack helicopters or something, and we'll fill out the front row.
Have you heard anything about the BBC interview?
No, they cancelled.
Oh, have they not asked back?
No. Well, they said, we'll rearrange, but they haven't said anything. It was because I said I wanted to record the interview.
Oh dear.
Well, if they can't take it out of context.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Not like context matters anymore, according to the court.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Legally, it's not a problem. An issue.
Do you know what really worries me genuinely? And guys, really take this with you. When the Chavez regime started 20 years ago in my country, it started exactly like this. So not against minorities, but it was against what they call the missions, the social programs.
Right.
So rounding people, taking people to prison, and it started exactly like this. I think the only difference between my country and this country is that in my country we had Cuba putting their hands on our stuff. In this country I have yet to see that. So we don't have that external factor, controlling everything. But it started exactly the same. So and this is exactly the reason we need more people like him.
And Corbyn wants exactly the same thing to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such.
And I know Venezuelans that want to vote for Corbyn because he looks like your nice uncle.
Well, he rang Maduro in Spanish. And he congratulated him on...
I saw it.
Calling him comrade and how the revolution was doing brilliantly, and it's it's going
successfully implemented socialism in Venezuela.
And that should tell you everything about Corbyn's electability, you would think. Exactly. It's currently a failed state, basically.
The trouble is people don't look into it closely enough. They see,
that's where Antifa should go,
And they say things like, it's the CIA. It's like the CIA wasn't necessary for the collapse of Venezuela. It just wasn't necessary.
By the way, they've just taken 3 extra zeros from the currency.
Oh, really?
So the last time they did that was 2008. I was still living there. I moved to the UK. Now, 10 years later, they've done it again. So that means 10 to the 6.
Yeah. Which is
on paper, which in reality is like 10 to the 8th.
Yeah. Which is exactly going to work. I mean, that's what economists always suggest. Just add zeros to it. You get richer.
And there's another thing. 2008, they had the money to issue a new currency, a complete set of currency. 10 years later, they have no money to issue a new set of currency, so that won't be possible. I don't know how.
It's amazing how the oil industry's failing as well, isn't it? They packed the Venezuelan oil industry with just partisans of Chavez and Maduro, and now it's at lowest output ever.
Yeah.
And I mean that's how Venezuela is maintaining itself.
It's a quarter of what it was in 2002.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
No, it's a banana.
Well,
republic. It's the only
it's exactly. It's completely rational from a socialist point of view, but it's. I mean, who possibly would want this country to go down that road apart from Corbyn and his supporters?
The "this is fine" meme. Picture of Venezuela 20 years ago and then today. Just "this is fine." With Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, absolutely. And same with Angela Merkel and the migrant crisis. It's fine. It's because it's not affecting them.
Guys, really don't fall in denial. 20 years ago, we said this is never going to happen. We're never going to go this route.
Yeah.
Cuba are never going to rule things in this country. This is never going to happen. Guys, do not commit the same mistake.
Totally agree.
Did you see Owen Jones' video about socialism was coming to?
Oh yeah. Owen, socialism is coming to.
It's not going to happen.
Just keep on watching television.
What's that? He got kicked out of Labour because he won another referendum.
who was
Owen
it? No, that
Jones.
was
Owen Smith.
Yeah, that was Owen Smith. Yeah. But oh man, that's another thing as well. This fucking anti-democratic folks. The vote was done. Yeah. The vote was done. You just didn't like it.
They
Just
like
get over
democracy
it.
when it goes their way.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly all it is. That's all of this is. You know.
And then it's what Rees Mogg keeps coming back on. He said, well, we've had two. Because then in the election,
Yeah.
everyone voted for the pro-leave.
I mean, that was how the Conservatives got the majority in the first place. Saying, Cameron was like, look, we are going to have a referendum. Everyone's like, done. Let's do this.
Plus, they said, there was arguments that because everyone was calling it Trump's going to turn a Brexit handful out there. I said the same thing was happening with Brexit because every time I looked at the paper and it featured a Brexit
and Steve Hughes is another.
Idiot inbred. It's like, if you're going to keep insulting us,
They're good.
down on us. Okay, this is why you lose.
In spite of Brexit, greatest headline since 2016 in the UK. In spite of Brexit, it's like all these good things. In spite of Brexit.
In spite of
No, but that's great, isn't it? Because they've already they have defined Brexit as a tragedy. They've defined it. So anything that happens from this point onwards is in spite of the tragedy, and it's like
it's impossible that Brexit
it's
could
the
ever have
British
any.
media.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's the Holy War of the British media.
If you raise the moral bar, people won't jump.
Yeah.
Sorry?
If you raise the moral bar, people won't jump. They'll find a different game to play.
It's true. And it's. I mean, literally, they've got a whole host of people who are considered hate preachers, apparently, who are people who want to speak about these issues, and they'll end up finding it. But right, okay, I wasn't planning on spending all day here. I do have to go home and upload a video now. Yeah, we're going to head off in a bit. But
Can I take a picture?
yeah, of course, man.
My head's really flat.
Yeah, it's flat as anything. No problem, man. Thanks for coming out.
Big fan.
Oh, thank you.
Only 15, so I'm in school.
Well,
Just like Mark,
keep your head down. Don't be a hero. Okay?
I'm in college first year. Already not finished the year yet. One of my mates had Discord open, went down my server that we're all in, and now they're looking for me to find out because my memes are too offensive.
Wow, someone called the cops.
I know.
Shit.
You don't have a permit for.
Yeah, you don't have a license for that, mate. Oh man, I love that license meme. Just everything. It's also fucking true. It's so accurate. Fucking unlicensed butter knives and whatnot.
That prosecution apparently said as well. They're not going to have a look at the intent of the matter. What the judges and the judges. That means the judges.
Jonathan Pyne's video was like one of the first ones in ages I've agreed with. It was such a good video.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that drives me crazy about the whole we're gonna, we decide what the context is they're literally saying to you, we are irrational. Because what you do to be a rational actor, you look at the context in which something is happening, and then you judge and make determinations by the context itself. And that's how to be rational. That's what a rational actor does.
It's quote mining.
But it's literally just being an idealist.
But there's no such thing as rationality in your postmodern.
Exactly, but that's it. They're deliberately saying that. Say it to your fucking faces. We're going to be zealots, and we're not going to pay attention to what's really happening here. It's like, okay, then you're nuts.
Reality is a social construct.
Am I right in saying if you ignore context and intent, is that, if you applied that to any other crime, say manslaughter, does that mean all manslaughter?
Well, that means that every soldier is a murderer. Yeah. You killed a person. Yeah, he was a jihadi and he was about to blow up a school. But you murdered that man.
There have been articles calling it that.
They live in a well-off area.
Yeah, but this is the point. Context is everything, all the time, and you can't be a rational person without considering the context in which things happen. And if you're going to ignore that deliberately, it scares me that a judge thinks he has the power to do. And the thing is, context is reality. Context is the reality in which things are happening. So the judge is just saying, reality doesn't matter to me. I reject it and substitute with my own.
We go to a social club, and one of the guys who runs it, he said, we were talking about rape just because we were having a conversation about it, and he said, well, context doesn't matter. He was talking about context doesn't matter when it comes to rape. Like, no, it's the most important thing. That's like,
so what about consent?
That's what determines whether it is rape or not.
If intent and context doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So unless you have every single time you want to touch someone, you get a formal letter drafted with signed.
Oh yeah, I need to consent.
Yeah. I mean, I've never asked a woman for consent to have sex with them, but I've never raped anyone either. So now explain that. Oh, you must be a rapist.
Yeah,
it's like,
you're a rapist.
Yeah, exactly. Or
you've raped Sarkisian with your words.
I've been remarkably kind to Anit Sarkisian, really. I mean, I never did anything particularly harsh other than saying, look, I think you're wrong.
Yeah, but like saying you're wrong is rape.
Well, yeah.
Calling a woman wrong is rape.
What about Lacey?
Yeah, no, she's actually a really nice person, and she's open to discuss this, which is good.
She's moved on from the same stuff.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
She gave you post facto consent for the rape.
What we're doing right here is working. You know
Does
what
that
I'm
even
saying?
could they do that?
I studied you. I know your arguments.
It's right. Yeah, I'm gonna head off, guys.
Would you like me to get in touch with you, Sargon?
Yeah. Email me.
Show trial.
Email. So I'd love to hear about what's happening.
You might want to see my partner as well.
Yeah.